When music gets hard, come see Professor Lee Euph.
Hey guys, I'm Professor Lee Euph, and today we're going to finish the other half of the circle of fifths, talk about some more chords, key signatures, and relative key signatures. So quite a bit. I have a lot to cover in this video, and I'm falling behind once again. No big deal. Anyway, so we're going to talk about the flat side of the circle of fifths. So we already talked about the sharp side, that's all of this. You know, G is 1 sharp, D is 2 sharps, and I showed you kind of how to get to them. Review my other video if you are questioning that half. But now this is the other half, the flat side. So for the first flat, so we already know C has nothing in its key signature. That's why it's up at the top. It has nothing here. The next one that we just kind of have to remember, no true trick to it, is F. F has 1 flat. That's my little flat symbol if you can't tell. And that 1 flat will be B flat. If we use our little chart up here, this is the order for sharps. If it was flats, it's just backwards. So it'd be B, E, A, D, G, C, F. See how that's essentially just backwards? So this one's for sharps, this one's for flats. Anyway, so our first flat will be F. So if it's 1 flat, it's always going to be F. Okay. Now, if we take it a step further, the next one will be B flat. The next key signature will be B flat. And it has 2 flats in it. Essentially, just like the sharp side, if it has 1 sharp over here, then it goes to 2 sharps, then it goes to 3 sharps, and then 4. So this is going to be the same thing. It's going to have 1 flat, 2 flat, 3 flats, 4 flats, and then... yeah, and then 5 flats will overlap here, and 6 flats will overlap here, and 7 flats will overlap there. Anyway, I'll get to these in a moment, but anyway. So 1 flat is F, 2 flats will be B flat. Now, how we can figure out the next one, for 3 flats, is essentially, you look at all 3 flats, and so our 3 flats would be B, E, and A. Then you go to the second to last flat, which would be E. So, you know, this would be your key of E. Hopefully that makes some sense to you guys. Now, if we come down to here to 4 flats, here's our first 4 flats, B, E, A, and D. We take the second to last flat, which would be A. So this would make this the key of A. And it's just that basic pattern. So if you remember for the sharp side, it was, if it was 1 sharp, it would be F, according to this order. And you'd go a half step up from there to determine the key. So F, half step up from F sharp, would be G. With 2 sharps, the second sharp is C. So it'd be C sharp. If you go half step up from C sharp, the key would be D. And so on. So for the flats, instead of going a half step up, like you do with the sharps, you're just going to take the second to last flat. So if there's 5 flats, that would be B, E, A, D, and G. You're going to take the second to last flat. So it would be D flat, would be your key. Yeah, and I haven't been labeling these properly. That would be E flat, and that would be A flat. Because our keys of E and A are over here. Now this is where things start to get complicated. Because now we're getting into the key of 5 flats, 6 flats, and 7 flats. Essentially, the key of 5 flats would be, let's go to our 5th flat. You take the second to last flat, that would make this the key of D flat. Okay, so the key of D flat has 5 flats. But the reason why these overlap is because D flat and C sharp are enharmonic, which means they're essentially the same note, just labeled differently. Think of a piano. You press the key of D flat, the literal black key that's D flat, that is actually the same key as C sharp, if you look at it that way. So that's why they're overlapping on our circle of fifths chart. And if I would have wrote it better, this wouldn't have such a big gap, but you guys get the gist of it. So then we come over to 6 flats. 6 flats up here, our 6th flat is C, so you take the second to last flat, which would be G. So that would be the key of G flat, 6 flats. And again, G flat and F sharp are enharmonic, so that's why they are overlapping. And then for our last flats, it would be the 7th flat is F, so it would be the key of C. C flat, technically, because our key of C is up at the top. So hopefully that makes sense. You don't have to use my tips for memorizing, the keys, so to speak, but I have always used them, and they seem to help me quite a bit. Again, for sharps, you go up a half step from the last sharp. So whatever sharp it is, let's say it's D sharp, you go up a half step, your key would be E. So 4 sharps, last sharp being the D sharp, it'd be the key of E. For flats, you're going to take the second to last flat. So let's say it's the key of C, the second to last flat is G, so the key is going to be G flat with 6 sharps. That's 6 flats, sorry. Anyway, so that's that for the circle of fifths. Nothing else to it. I mean, we'll add in minors and stuff later, but that is not now. Alright, so let me grab my other piece of paper. Okay. So now for this next part, we're going to look at the key signatures. So we're going to talk about where the flats and where the sharps go for the key signatures. So we're going to start with just treble clef. Seems like a lot more people know treble clef when they're music majors than they know bass clef. At least in my school. Anyway, so if it's a key of just one flat, which we know is F, the first flat is B flat, so it's going to go on the 3rd line because that's where B sits. Then if we add in another flat, that would be E flat. So we're going to find the E. It has to be this E, the last space to the top, the 4th space, so to speak. That has to be the E you put it on. You can't put it on the E down here. Just, that's how they do it, not much more behind it than that. Then for our next flat, that would be A, so it'd have to go in this space. That's a line. I'm talking the space, because A sits right there. Let's say you add another flat, we're going to put it D flat. Then G flat. Yeah. So G is down here. Put that down there. Then it's going to go C flat, which is right up here. And then it's going to go F flat. And F is going to be down here. So that is essentially what your key signature should be looking like. Hopefully you guys have seen something like this if you have been, music students for a while. If you have no idea, then yeah, this is going to be pretty new for you. So now let's go over the sharp side. Again, we'll do it in treble clef. If you guys need to see what they'd look like in bass clef, I'll be happy to show you that as well. But anyway, so for our first sharp, it's going to be F sharp, so it's going to sit on the top line. The next sharp is C sharp, so I'll go in the space. Then G sharp. This is going to be a weird one. It does not go on this bottom line. It's going to go above the last line, right up in the space. Again, I don't know why, but they want it up there. So that's G sharp, then we go to D sharp. So that's up here. Then A sharp, all the way down here. Then E sharp. Up here, I'm sorry. Here is your E sharp. And then your B sharp, which is going to be right on the B line. I spaced them out a little bit. Normally they're a lot more condensed. Got something in my throat, don't worry about it. Anyway, so that's essentially where all the flats and sharps should go. If you have a key signature of only 3 flats in, obviously you're only going to put the first 3 flats, and you don't have to worry about the rest of that. I just wanted to show you where each of them go in case you have a key signature that goes, that uses all of them. Now we get to determine what the relative key would be to certain types of key signatures. So let's say we have, again in treble clef, we have 2 flats. So it'd be B flat and E flat. that would be the key of B flat, because you take the second to last flat, which is B flat in this case. So it's the key, I'll write it up here, key of B flat major, because these are all major keys. Everything in the circle of fifths is major. So this would be B flat major. So now, in order to figure out its relative minor, which means the minor scale which has the same key signature in it as the major scale. So we need to find the minor scale that has exactly 2 flats as the B flat major. Very simple, actually. So first we want to figure out the first note of B flat major, which you basically just pick B flat, which is, wow, struggling right here. So that's B flat. Now you move down 2 notes worth. So here to here. And then we determine what is that note. That note is now G. So our relative minor is literally G minor. See, that wasn't too hard. Maybe a little confusing, so I'll do another one. So, again, treble clef. Let's say I do 3 sharps this time. So we got F, C, and G sharp. How do we figure out what key that is? You take the last sharp, which is G sharp, and raise it up a half step. So G sharp to A. So this would be A major. Then to figure out the relative minor, we graph. You basically mark where A is. A is right here. And then you go down 2 steps. 1, 2. Which would make this an F minor. So A major's relative minor is F minor. B flat major's relative minor is G minor. Hopefully that makes some sense. That's it for basically determining relative key signatures. Because when you look at it, let's say, A major, we said it has 3 sharps in its key signature, which means F minor also has 3 sharps in its key signature. That is why they are called relative key signatures. Then there are certain things called like parallel key signatures, which would be A major and A minor. To be honest with you, right this second, I don't know if I could tell you A minor's key signature. But the point is, it's a different key signature than 3 sharps. So that's why those would be parallel, because they're both A. So one's A major, one's A minor. But they have 2 total different key signatures. The more frequent one we will talk about is relative minor, which is both major and minor have the same key signature, but technically they start on different notes. And the notes are only 2 spots apart. 2 lines, not 2 lines apart, 2 spaces apart. Hopefully that makes some sense. And there was one more thing I was going to touch on. Yes, chords. So let's say, again, I'm doing all this in treble clef. I can always make another video doing more bass clef examples if you guys would like more practice with bass clef. And I can't tell you what treble clef that was. And that's not much better. Anyway. So let's say we have the chord where we have a note sitting on the 3rd line. And we have a note sitting on the above the top line. And this bottom line, let's move this treble clef. And the bottom note has a flat. So it would be B flat and G flat. So now, let's figure out the key. If the bottom note is B flat, then the key is going to have, if the bottom note is B flat, then we know the key is the key of B flat major. And how many flats does the key of B flat major have? 2. So we're just going to draw out our 2 flats essentially. Okay, now with that out of the way, we know it's B flat major. Great. So it's a B flat major chord, so it's going to be a major 6th chord. They're 6 spaces apart, and it's major. The reason why it's not minor, augmented, diminished, anything like that yet is because even though this has an accidental in front of it, that is within the key signature that we are talking about. Now we have to look at the G, just to make sure there's nothing else funky going on with it. It is a regular G, and in the key signature of B flat, you can have a regular G. It's not like the key signature says, oh, that needs to be G flat. If it needed to be G flat, then this would not be a major 6th chord. That'd be an augmented 6th, because it's higher than G flat. G is higher than G flat. Anyway, the point is it is a major 6th, because both notes are within the key signature. Now, the reason why I just said all that is because we need to figure out what the other chord would be, the inverted chord. So in order to figure out the inverted chord, we would take the bottom note still, essentially just rewrite that, and we would take this top note and bring it down, or it could be up technically, depending on where the note would be. But G up here, we're going to bring it down to the G down here. And I realize I've touched on this kind of thing before in another video, but in this video I'm explaining it a little bit further with another little twist to it, as you'll find in a minute. Anyway, so this bottom note is G again, so it's still B flat and G flat. So we already know it's going to be a third because they're 3 spaces apart. And what's the opposite of major? Minor. See? So it's not that bad. If you don't remember me mentioning before, the opposite of major is minor. The opposite of minor is major. Opposite of augmented is diminished, and the opposite of diminished is augmented. One that trips people up a lot is the opposite of perfect. A perfect pitch or perfect chord is perfect still. No matter what, that will be perfect. Okay, let's do another example. Now this is where things are going to get a little bit trickier. I'm going to do this example in bass clef. We're going to have one note start on G, and the other note will be B. Except this is going to be a G sharp. So G and B. Okay. Now we go to figure out, well, what's the key signature? So we take the bottom note. What's the key signature of G sharp? You're probably asking yourself, there is no key signature of G sharp. That's where we run into a problem. So now we know the interval is going to be 3. But we have no idea if this is going to be major or minor because we don't have our key signature to say if both of these notes are going to essentially be in the key signature. So this is where our inverted chords help us. So now let's start to figure out the inverted side of it. So we take the bottom note, G sharp. Okay. And then we, instead of having B up there, we're going to put B down. So B will be down on this line. So now we're going to look at the key of B. Not B flat, just the key of B. So how many sharps does the key of B have? It has 5 sharps. So now we know for this side anyway, this has 5 sharps. Is the key, is the note G sharp in the key signature of 5 sharps? Yes, because if we look at our order of sharps, so to speak, it goes F, C, G, D, A. That's our first 5 sharps anyway. So in there, G is in that chord. So with G being in there, and B natural obviously being in there, because if you write out the rest of the sharps, E and B are still natural. Those have not been sharped in this key signature. So you can have a G sharp and a natural B. And if you can have both of them in the key signature of 5 sharps, which you do, then this would be a major, and then the space between would be 6th. So it's major if both notes are in the key signature. it would be minor if one of the notes wasn't. So anyway, so we've determined that both notes are, so it's going to be a major sixth. But we're still looking to figure out this one. But if we know this is a major sixth, then this has to be a minor third. It has to be the opposite. If this is major, that's minor. If this is major, that's minor. Same thing with augmented and diminished. So a lot more steps and a little more confusing to think of it that way. But the trick is to get both notes in at least one side of them to match the key signature, which this side matched the key signature. So we could figure out this side, which helped us figure out this side. Again, a lot to take in all at once, and hopefully I explained it well enough. If not, let me know. I can always re-explain it for you guys. But that's essentially it. Hopefully I'll be able to keep up on my videos a little more for you guys, but I don't believe we pretty much discussed anything else. Like I said, you got any questions, just let me know. But otherwise, have fun studying.